take you deal. The basketball team gets to go on a trip once every 4 years. And the trips are paid for the basketball team and the coaches, are paid for by donations and fundraising. The other people that get to go, like myself, we foot our own bill. And it's a 10-day trip. And for Italy, it cost me $6,100. Now, that covered the airfare, the hotel rooms, several meals, all trips and tours that we took, and bus transportation wherever we needed it. So that was a pretty good deal. I only had to take bad money with me for a couple meals and for whatever I wanted to purchase while I was there. So we set off on an early, I think it was a Saturday morning. We set off early from the campus of UT in 2 big buses. Took us up to Detroit. That right there is Trish Collett, the coach, welcoming us on our bus. And we set off for Amsterdam on a Delta flight. We arrived in Amsterdam about 8 a.m. their time. We had to scurry like crazy to get from one end of the airport to the other and go through customs at the same time to catch a KLM flight, which was 1 hour to the Marco Polo airport in Venice. It was a clear day as we flew over the Alps. And I was lucky I had a window seat. And I must have taken about 30 pictures, and they all pretty much look the same. So I just picked a few. Now, when we landed in the Marco Polo airport, there were 2 big buses there waiting for us, along with 2 young Italian fellas who were with us the whole trip. And their purpose was to help schlep luggage, make sure we were in the right place at the right time, and serve as interpreters. But most people spoke English there, so we really didn't have to depend on that. But when we landed, we got these 2 tour buses that took us to Water's Edge, where we caught a couple, there was one water taxi that had this is the taxi right down here. There was a downstairs part and an upstairs part, so a lot of us got on the upstairs part. Drove across the bay to Venice. And Venice is enormous. No matter where you look, right? Everywhere is city. And Venice is actually made up of 118 small islands, separated by canals and by over 400 bridges. The city itself dates back to the 10th century BC, and it is a major financial and maritime power during the Middle Ages, and it was the staging area for the Crusades. It's also called the Queen of the Adriatic, City of Water, City of Bridges, the Floating City, and the City of Canals. And the whole city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and that stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. This was a couple scenes on our ride across the bay. We did not have a tour guide at this time, so I could not tell you what these buildings were, although I think that this one right here, which is there, is probably a church. This was the tower to the entrance of St. Michael's Square. As we're driving along, you'll see on the left here, that's a private yacht. And that wasn't the biggest one we saw. When we were in Capri, we saw something that put that one to shame. We parked down, whoops. We parked back here somewhere, and we had to walk all along this area. And there were 10 cruise ships there. Now, I've never been on a cruise, so I don't know how many people can get on a cruise ship. They're big. And there were 10 of them. 10 of them right there. And we entered the San Marcos Square right in this area here. Our first stop was to this Taverna da Doge for lunch. Taverna, I don't remember.
I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah, Taverna da Doge. Anyway, we went in there and had a wonderful pasta meal. We had a lot of pasta meals to the point where when I got home, I didn't want to see pasta for a minute. But none of the pasta we had in Italy was out of the box. It was all handmade, all fresh. We had a lovely pasta lunch there with a salad, and they had some kind of really delicious chocolatey eclair for dessert. And all the waiters were older men in white jackets.
Wow.
When we left the taberna, we were split into like 4 or 5 groups. We each got a little like transistor radio to hang around our neck with earbuds, and we had, each group had a private guide who took us on a tour. And it was nice because there were a lot of people around, and if you weren't right next to the guide, you couldn't hear it, but you could with these transistors. And this was in San Marcos Square, and what you'll see here, that's that tower again. And all along here, these buildings just go all the way around the square. And all these things right here are like, oh, a clothing store, a jewelry store, you know, they're retail establishments. And up above are offices, government offices, one was a library, and so forth. And then this is, right here, is the jail. And when we didn't go in the jail, we were not in jail. But we walked by, and there's bars on the windows. You couldn't really see in, but that was the jail. And this is the basilica. This is the St. Mark's Basilica, very old. And buildings back then, such as this, took centuries to build. They didn't get them put up in 10 months. They took centuries to build. And this is St. Mark's Basilica. And you see up here, and there, right there, are bronze horses. Those are not the originals. The originals are solid gold. And they were taken down, and they're inside the basilica now. And those are replicas up on top.
They're in the jail.
Oops. I'm going too fast. There we go. This is in St. Mark's Square. Hold on. Whoa. I'm getting old. This was an open-air restaurant. There was a band playing. This, you probably heard of the Bridge of Sighs. Heard of the Bridge of Sighs? How it got its name is people from the jail, when they were being taken to their execution in St. Mark's Square, had to cross over this bridge, and they could look out these windows and see the scaffold where they were going to die. So that's how it got that name. You can't go anywhere in Italy without sampling one of the little shops that they have. They have them all over. They have anything you can think of. Pizza, sandwiches, bread, gelato. Wonderful gelato. And of course, you can't go to Venice without going on a gondola. And it was interesting. The gondoliers all worked for a company, but they own their own boats, and they can decorate them however they want. So no two gondolas look the same. And another thing I noticed about gondolas, if you've ever been in a canoe, they're not as stable as a canoe. And if you get a bunch of people in the boat like this, and these people start going like this, and I asked the gondolier, I said, you ever tipped over? He said, oh yeah. But then I said, how deep is the water? Because it was pretty murky and you couldn't see the bottom. He said about 6 feet. And I was sitting there trying to remember, I said, gosh, I hope I don't have to pull on my past experience as a certified lifeguard. I just By the way, that's me there before I had white hair. We then left Venice, got on our tour buses, and they took us to Bologna. Now, Bologna was founded by the Etruscans and has been an urban center for centuries. It's famous for its towers, and I'll show a couple examples of that. Its churches and its lengthy porticos. It is rated as one of the top cities in terms of quality of life, and is one of the wealthiest in Italy. And of all the places we visited, I loved Bologna. I liked it the best. We got in about 9 o'clock at night after being awake since 8:30 in the morning the day before. We were hungry, so a bunch of us found a little restaurant where we got street-side seating, and that is my pizza. And one thing about pizzas in Italy, they don't slather on the sauce like they do here. They really don't. In fact, I liked it much better. Tricia, the coach, came by. She bought us all limoncello, which is a traditional liqueur in Italy. And the Italian player on the team, Mariella Santucci, was there. That was her hometown, and that is either her, I think that was her nephew that we saw. We got to bed probably about midnight after being away for 2 full days. The next morning, we didn't have to do anything right away, so we got to sleep in a little bit. But the next day, this was our hotel, Hotel Ternecchi. It's in downtown Bologna, and out in front is a statue of Garibaldi, which is right across the street from the Opera House. We broke up into 2 groups this time, and we got the little transistor radios with the earplugs. And this is why I liked Bologna. These are, whoops, I keep hitting the wrong button. This is a street. This is a sidewalk. And these are the porticos. They're everywhere. You can walk anywhere in the city and you never get wet. And the sidewalks are not cement. They are marble. And there's 3 different examples. This one was incredible. It was all mosaic, inlaid tile. It's beautiful. Again, this is in the Plaza, what was it called? Plaza Maggiore. Piazza Maggiore. You see Neptune everywhere. A lot of statues of Neptune. This building right here is this one here. It was built in the year 1000 and it was prominent during the Crusades. And Bologna was known for its towers. It had hundreds of towers, many of which no longer exist. These 2 still do. They were originally created as fortifications, but over the years, over the centuries, they've been used for government offices and even housing. Now they're just historical buildings. And these 2 towers lean. They're not straight up and down, they lean. Each plaza, or piazza, is in a big square, and there's shops all around, and then apartments above. People in Italy, they don't live in suburbs like we do, they live in the city. And what you'll find, you go down a side street, and whoops, you'll see, this was a meat store, vegetables and fruit, pastry, they would have a pasta shop, whatever. And people on their way home would stop and do their grocery shopping here before they walked down the street, went through the door, and went up to their apartment. Didn't see any vehicles in this area, no vehicles. We also visited the original site of the University of Bologna, which is the oldest university in the world. It was founded in 1088. The University of Bologna still exists, but it's now on the outskirts of town, and they keep this as a historical site. And this, you go down this little side street and you come upon another courtyard, and these doors right here were the doors to the classrooms. And students came from all over the world, and they studied liberal arts, law, theology, and philosophy. This university was famous for studies in canon and civil law, and it is historically noted for the development of medieval Roman law. Oh, and you notice here, and right here, all of there. These are the family crests of the students that attended that university, and they're plastered everywhere. Some are even painted on the ceilings. We went to a government building, and again, you walked through this archway here, and you came into this little plaza. And that's a statue of Pope Gregory. I couldn't tell you the years. And these were government buildings, and these are the famous horse stairs. And they're only about this high, but they're very deep. And during medieval times, the wealthy people who wanted to visit a government office didn't want to park their horse down here. They rode it up the stairs. And now, this particular site is used for a lot of wedding photos. A lot of people have their wedding photos taken here. We also toured around the Jewish section, which is right here, and all the buildings in this area were this terracotta color. And you notice here, graffiti. I saw so much graffiti in Italy, everywhere. And I asked the guy about it, and they said they consider it art, and they encourage it, as long as you don't put it on historic buildings. And you did not see it on historic, like church buildings or whatever, but you did see it everywhere, everywhere. And this is a street musician. He was kind of a one-man band. This is just a general picture of a street. This was the base of one of those leaning towers. We went to the Basilica of San Petrino. He was the patron saint of Bologna. He was the bishop of Bologna in the 5th century. And you can't really see, but there was a lot, out in front here in this plaza area, there were a lot of chairs that were set up much like they are here. And out of sight over here was this gigantic movie screen. And they said every Friday they show a current movie, and it's free and open to the public. Now this particular church, they built the church, but they never finished the facade. So the marble only goes up this high. And we had to pay €1 to get a little bracelet to take pictures inside. I paid the euro, I never saw anybody policing it, so. But €1 there is about $1 here, so. Inside, this is the inside of the church. It's the high altar. All around the perimeter of that area are these private chapels that the wealthy in medieval times would purchase the chapel or that area, and they decorated the way they wanted to. And some of these little alcoves are very plain. They're not very ornate, and some of them are pretty darn spectacular. And they're preserved now for historical reasons. And this is actually the tomb of St. Patronus. This is the meridian line. It's the longest meridian line in the world. And what happens is, right up here in the ceiling is it's just a really little, it's not a very big hole, it's only about that big. And the sun will shine down from there onto the line, and as the seasons go, the light goes, and that will tell the people what month or year, month or time it is to when to plant their crops and when not. So it's a meridian line. They also, this is not the real Shroud of Turin, it's just a replica that is there. And that's another site, or another example of the inside of that church. One day we had a day at a cooking school. And we split into 2 groups. One group went in the morning and one in the afternoon. I don't know, you may recognize this guy. Anybody recognize him? That's Rick Rowe. He's the president of the Maumee Valley Adventurers.
Oh my goodness.
And he is also very, very active in the Uniters group. And we split into 2 groups. That's me right there making tortellini. So we got to make it from scratch, from mixing up the dough to running it through all the machines and forming it. And then we got to eat it with a meat sauce and a glass of wine and a dessert that was provided by the man in the cooking school. So that was a lot of fun. That night we played a basketball game versus the Bologna All-Stars. Universities in Europe do not have collegiate sports teams like we have here. They're club teams. So these are made up of girls that like to play basketball, and they come together. And in Bologna, they have different club teams, and what they do is they pick probably their best players from the different club teams to form the Bologna All-Stars. We won. That right there is Mary Alice Attucci, and she played with a lot of these girls, so she knew them. And what was really cool was after the game was over, all these little kids came running up to the UT basketball players and asked for autographs. That was kind of cool. And then we went to dinner, buffet dinner afterwards, both teams and everybody that was there. This was played in like a high school gymnasium, no air conditioning, it was hot, and there was no vending machines or anything like that, but the parents of the visiting, or the Italian team, they all brought in goodies, like what were back there, which is nice. The next day was our day in Florence. We took a bus, we went to Florence, and we stopped in an overlook. And right here, the city just fades right out of the horizon. You can't see the end of it. And this I took from, it's a took a zoom picture. That's the Duomo. And that is the famous Duomo. And it is absolutely enormous. And I wanted to go in so bad, but you could see there's people here standing in line, and they were like 3 and 4 deep this way. And the line snaked all the way around the building. We were told that if you want to get in to see it, it'll be about 2 hours standing in line. So we said, no thanks. Couldn't take that much time, but boy, what a beautiful building. And Florence is the leather capital of the world. Everywhere you go, it smells like leather. There are outside kiosks, there's little shops that are probably not, they're just really tiny, 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 tiny. And one thing I noticed, see up here, it's an army truck with a guy with a machine gun. And he was patrolling back and forth in front of the Duomo and in front of the portico statues, which we'll get to. This little guy here, if you rubbed his nose, it got very hot. This is the Basilica of Santa Croce, burial place of Michelangelo, Machiavelli, and Galileo. Again, you know, centuries to build it. And Florence was a center of medieval trade and finance, and it was made famous by the Medici family. And it's considered to be the birthplace of the Renaissance. It's also, the city is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a major international fashion center along with the leather capital of the world. This is the palace of the Medici family. That's the outside. That is a picture, a statue of the Last Count, and that was an interior courtyard. This bridge, you may have heard of the Ponte Vecchio Bridge. It's a very famous bridge. It has the original Roman piers, and this dates back to 996 BC. Now this bridge, obviously these are original, these aren't, but they're kind of like replicas of what was there. It was a pedestrian bridge, but it's a pedestrian bridge now. It probably had horses on it back then, but now it's got souvenir shops and leather shops and so forth, but back then it may have had a grove, you know, like a pasta shop or a leather shop or a silversmith. Another, we went to the Piazza della Signoria, and at the entrance there is another statue of Neptune, and he's right down here. And these two big statues are right here. This is David, statue of David that was made and it was constructed in 1510 by Michelangelo. It's 17 feet high. And this is about the same height, and that is a statue of Hercules and Diomedes. It was done by Bentinelli in 1530. These are not the originals. These are exact replicas, exact replicas. The originals are now in the museum to get them out of the elements. And here is the portico of statues, which is really cool. There must have been a dozen or more statues in here, and I just picked out 2. This one is Perseus with the head of Medusa, and this is the famous rape of the Sabine women. And that is a complete, solid piece of marble. It's carved out of a solid piece of marble. And when you say rape of the Sabine women, rape, back then, rape had a different meaning. It meant kidnapping. These are early Romans from the beginning of Rome. They didn't have any wives, so they went to the Sabines and they just took some. That's what they call rape. Not our current. Oops. We had lunch at this little restaurant, and that was my meal up there in the corner. It was homemade pasta with crab, and when I ordered it, I was thinking crab legs like you get here. Those little boogers were about this big. And getting the meat out of them was not worth the trouble. But the pasta was really good. The next day, we took a high-speed train to Naples. These are the 2 Italian fellas that were with us. And when the train came, this is our train coming into the station, And we were told when that train stops, you've got 5 minutes to get your luggage on board, get it stowed away, get seated, because that train leaves right on the dime. And if you've got 1 foot on the platform and one on the train, you're left behind. And they go up to 250 miles an hour. We were going about 190. And you don't really notice it until another train comes the other way, and then it's just a blur and a big whoosh. Or you're going along and there's like a fence right there, then you can see. But when you're on it, you don't really read. It's a lot like being on an airplane, actually.
That's from Bologna, or is that from?
That was a high-speed train from Bologna to Naples.
Oh, but you stopped in Florence.
Well, that was a day trip.
Oh.
When we were done in Florence, we went back to Bologna. And this is what the inside looked like. We had first-class accommodations right here. And I took a walk through the train to the restaurant car where you could get, snacks or whatever that you could take back to your seat, or they had some bistro tables there that you could, enjoy. This is Naples. When we got to Naples, we got off the train. 2 more tour buses were waiting for us. And this is the city of Naples. And that is not Vesuvius. And we didn't really stay in Naples, we just kind of drove through it. And this is a picture, you look down a side street, and that's what you see right here. Apartments on the top, and shops on the bottom. We drove back past this, it's a castle. It has it dates back to the 6th century, and in the 12th century AD, the conquering Normans used this as the seat of their power. And the last emperor of Rome was exiled there in 475. It's right on the water. The buses had to park way back because this area right here was pedestrian only, although it was wide enough for the buses, but they didn't go down there. So we walked all along here, and again, these are all restaurants and shops, and these are all apartments facing the Bay of Naples. And we went to the Sorbonne restaurant, which is the birthplace of the margarita pizza, and there's a margarita pizza. It had a little bit more sauce than the others, but, And when we were done eating, we got back on the bus, and I took a picture of this building right here. This is on the outskirts of Naples, and what I found out was the wealthy people lived in the city. The less than wealthy people lived on the outskirts. And this right here is an expressway off-ramp.
Oh, wow.
It's right on top of it, right on. And they hang their laundry out. Everything was flattened in the breezes. And while we were in Italy, we went through a lot of tunnels like this. And that's what it looked like going through the tunnels. We were on our way to Sorrento. And I want to tell you something. I don't like heights. And those guardrails are probably about this high. And if you're on, those big tour buses, when they go around the corner, they kind of go like this. There's no sidewalks. There's just 2 lanes. And if you're sitting right here, when the bus goes around the corner, that guardrail disappears from sight. And those right there are boats. Those are boats down there. And the bus comes around this corner and then around here, and every which way. This is on the Amalfi Coast. And I took a picture of this too. I wanted you to notice, this is a street in Sorrento. And those are 2 tour buses. And honestly, they about this far back. And this guy right here, he just zooms in here, he goes around, he got him on the sidewalk, and he went around. And the people over here that were walking along the street, they just flattened like this. And I asked the bus driver, because one of the things I noticed in Italy is nobody was paying a lick of attention to stop signs and stoplights. They were just zooming in and out and in and out. And his comment was, the rules of the road are merely suggestions. He said, Italy driver, don't worry, be happy. But it was a little disconcerting. But I never saw an accident. Price of gas at that time was close to $7 a gallon. This was our hotel in Sorrento. The bus, again, had to park way far away because they couldn't get down this winding road. And we stayed here at the Hotel Regina. They had absolutely marvelous continental breakfast that you could take out on the balcony. And I sat here and I took this picture. You can barely see it, but that's Mount Vesuvius, right there. And I took a picture of this building because it was really interesting. And again, look at the bus. Whoops. Look at the bus. I mean, there's not much room there. There's no sidewalk. But again, there was some shops on the bottom and apartment buildings on top. This is another street scene. And these they have Mini Coopers, like little cars, and Vespas. And they just zoom in and out. They go around the bus and they cut in front of it. And people just walking everywhere. And it's a wonder that people aren't killed. A couple of us one night said we wanted to go to a really nice restaurant. So we went to the Donna Sophia restaurant. We got a taxi, and that restaurant was founded by Sophia Loren. That was my dinner. It was sea bass on a bed of watercress with a lemon cream sauce. This was a complimentary hors d'oeuvre. I have no idea what it was, but it was really good. And this is the chef that came out to greet us. All right, here we go. This is my favorite part. We had one day in Sorrento that was a free day. You could do what you wanted to do. Most of the people in our party wanted to spend it at the beach. And I said, well, that's okay, but to me a beach is a beach. I'm this close to Herculaneum and Pompeii. I'm not passing up that opportunity. And there was like 5 or 6 of us that felt the same way. So we hired a driver and a guide, and we spent our day in antiquity. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is we know a lot about the eruption of Herculaneum and Pompeii because of Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Younger was the son of Pliny the Elder. And they were on an island just off of Naples, and they witnessed this eruption. And Pliny the Elder was an admiral in the Roman Navy. And he set out boats to try to save people. But he didn't make it. He had to park his boats further down, and as you'll see, he did not make it. But his son, Pliny the Younger, recorded what happened. And this happened, they estimate, around the 24th of August in 79 AD. Now the people here did not know that this was a volcano. It hadn't erupted in a millennia. But it's all an earthquake zone, so there was a lot of tremors going on. They didn't pay any attention to it. But around noon on that day, the volcano absolutely exploded. It blew its top. And what happened was the ash went up 35,000 feet in the air. And the prevailing winds are usually this way, but that day they were this way. And here's Pompeii right in here, and Herculaneum is over here. So the people in Herculaneum just went outside and looked. It's going over that way. The people in Pompeii thought, well, okay, it'll go away, it'll stop. But it didn't. This is the ash and plume, or the ash and pumice distribution. And Pliny the Elder kind of came and probably landed right about here, and he went inland and he got caught in it and he died. The eruption lasted 18 hours total, and it released 100,000 times the thermal energy of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. Herculaneum and Pompeii was completely obliterated or covered in 18 hours. But the worst part for Herculaneum and for parts of Pompeii were the pyroclastic flows that happened later in the day. And those pyroclastic flows, maybe Vince can tell me if I'm not correct or not, but they come out of the volcano and they roar down the mountain at 80 to 100 miles an hour, hot gas and all kinds of good stuff, and it just, you can't outrun it. And the people, the smart people in Herculaneum, they got a boat to Naples, but a lot of the people went down to the docks to wait for the next boat. They never made it. When the pyroclastic flow hit them, it was about 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And it cooked people. It literally roasted them alive. Their brains exploded, and they instantly got skeletonized. And some of the pyroclastic flows hit Pompeii, but most of the people were probably gone by that time. So Herculaneum and Pompeii were completely covered, and it wasn't rediscovered. They were forgotten. History forgot about them. It wasn't until around 1600 that a farmer was digging a well in the area of Pompeii that he came across it. Serious archaeological work started there in the 1700s and has been constant since then. Pompeii has about 170 acres that are uncovered right now, with about 40 more estimated to be uncovered. And Herculaneum, our first stop was Herculaneum, and it's much smaller. Herculaneum was a city, it was like a resort area for wealthy Romans. It had underground plumbing, underground sewers, but only about a third of it will never see the light of day, because right here is modern buildings on top of Herculaneum. The archaeologists can go in about this far, but they dare not go any farther because of the other structures up above. This was the level of the pyroclastic flow. It's hard to, it's that deep. And this building right here is right along in here. And this right here was the shoreline, which is now like half to 3/4 of a mile away, this way. And you can't really see it in this picture, but when you go down there and walk along, there are skeletons in each of these. And they were the people that were waiting for the next boat out. They never made it. They have a small museum at Herculaneum, and this was a woman with her jewelry. This is a carbonized boat. This picture and this picture are in a dining room. Herculaneum was better preserved than Pompeii because it didn't, Pompeii just got buried in ash and pumice, where Herculaneum did not. So Herculaneum is much better preserved. This is a bed, carbonized bed frame. This right here is a Herculaneum McDonald's.
Oh dear.
It's an outdoor area, and all these are like pots that are sunken in, and people could go there and buy soup and stew and stuff. So on their way home, they could get dinner. This is in a house. This is a balcony and a carbonized wooden screen. This is like a granary where they stored grain. This is interesting. This was a villa. A wealthy family owned this villa, and this was an apple orchard. And they decided to turn this, I don't know how the archaeologists figured this out, but they do. They turned this into like a bed and breakfast. And they took all the trees out and they turned this into a giant swimming pool. But when the archaeologists got here, they found seeds from quince apples. And they were able to propagate them, and they reforested this area in seeds with those seeds, quince apple. This is like a watering trough, city street. This is interesting. Now, slaves did all the cooking. And this is a kitchen. This is where they cooked. And you know what that is? It's a toilet. They had plumbing. So they could cook and at the same time. This is a dining room. They were in the process of reinstalling all the little tiles. The tiles, they were all scattered around, and they're piecing them together like a puzzle. And this is a bath, communal bath. People would come in here and they'd sit along the bench, take their clothes off, store them up here, and then they go into this bath. Our second stop was in Pompeii, and this is you can't tell from here, but it was very steep. It was, like this. There are handrails. And it was very slippery because that's basalt. And again, Mount Vesuvius. One thing I learned about Mount Vesuvius before I went, and I'm there thinking, that thing could blow while we're here. And there'd be there are millions of people living in and around that volcano today. It's monitored 24/7, but still. I'd be running, but I wouldn't be able to run fast enough. Pompeii did not have the sewer systems that Herculaneum did. In fact, this is a street, and these are stepping stones, so that you could step over all the icky stuff that was in the streets. And Pompeii is also, it's kind of on a hill, kind of like this. And what they would do when the streets got really nasty, was they'd open up, they'd pull the plug right here on the water top, and the water would wash all that stuff away. There are certain areas where in the street you could see the grooves from where wagons went. We were also told never take so much as a pebble from Pompeii. Just don't stoop down and pick up a pebble, it's bad luck. You may have seen this before. This is a symbol that is often used when talking about Pompeii. This was all encased in glass. It's a tile floor, but you can't walk on it. It's all encased in glass. I don't know who that is. This was a picture from the Forum. The Forum is at the top of the hill, and it's just a big open plaza, huge big open plaza. And then there are buildings all along. They had like little shops all around. And then up above were living quarters. A lot of the roofs in Pompeii caved in where they didn't necessarily in Herculaneum. This is a grist mill, and it would have, they put the raw grain in here, and then donkeys would go around and around and around and grain. They even found bodies, skeletons of donkeys in Pompeii. Here's another McDonald's, and here's this Forum, and there's the volcano right there. It's all within eyesight. This is the famous center of Pompeii, minus his head. Again, the Forum. Now, when I said Pompeii was covered in 18 hours, the only thing left visible in all of Pompeii 18 hours later was this little section right here. The highest point in the city. That was all that was left. And all along the side, the buildings on the side, they had these little, in the shops. This is where the archaeologists are storing things that they found. There's iron grates there, but I stuck my camera through so I could take some pictures. And you'll see a picture of it later, but this is a dog, the body of a dog. We went to, this is a temple that some of us went to. Kind of neat. This is a house, samples of houses, and you'll notice here and here, this is like the foyer of the house, and they all had these fountains, little fountains. I don't know what this was, it probably could have been a dining room. And this is slave quarters, these are the beds in the slave quarters. Body casts. The archaeologists and me. When they started excavating Pompeii, they came upon some skeletons, but they were in like a void. And they said, what the heck's going on here? So they pumped plaster into the voids, and this is what is resulting. The skeletons of these people are still inside these body casts. You can see here the skull cap, and you can see his teeth. This was that dog I was talking about. He was found chained to the wall. This is a man that was down near the docks, and you can see he was probably rising up. And this is probably when he got hit by the pyroclastic flow. This is a young fellow. They found he's holding it, his hands over his mouth, probably not to breathe in the gases and the ash. There's some more. This is a young boy, and this is a mother with a baby who's rising up, probably to get to the oxygen he could. Towards the end of the day, we were hot and dusty and tired, so we had our driver and our guide take us up the slopes of the volcano to the Sorrentino Vineyard for a 5-course wine tasting. And I tried to take pictures of each course and each bottle of wine. And then I was always saying, my gosh, I'm on the side of the volcano. If it blows, I'm toast. And this right here was a scene that overlooked the Bay of Naples. But after the 3rd course, I conveniently forgot that I was on the volcano. And I forgot to take pictures. But it was 2 courses 6 out of 5. The next day, we had a total day in Capri. And down by the, whoops. Well, what the heck? Okay, I keep getting, my fingers are too big, I guess. The team was buying flotation devices, and we had about 5 or 6 boats, because the boats only hold about 10 people each, and we set off for Capri. And we we sailed all around the island, and this is kind of what it looks like all the way around. And then we came upon the sea stacks, and from a distance they don't look that big, but darn, they are big. These are boats right here. And we drove right through it. This is going through it. And we stopped. This is not the blue hole that you've heard of, but the water looks beautiful. And we got right in close to look inside that cave. And then we all got to go swimming. The team loves to swim, believe me. When we got to the populated area of Capri, we had to park way out here, and we took a rubber raft taxi in, and then we went to lunch. That was my lunch. It was ravioli. And Capri was the vacation spot of the emperors in Rome. And you'll see Rome, there was Roman ruins on top of the island. I did not go up there because, believe it or not, I was a little queasy from the boat ride. So I just said, no, I'm going to sit here and kind of recoup a little bit. The next day we were on the road to Rome. This was on the bus right out of Sorrento, and you see it goes all the way up and around. We stopped at a rest stop, and the rest stops along this part of the road put our rest stops on the thruway to shame. These rest stops are absolutely incredible. I had to take that picture because I'd never heard of crock chips. This was the only place that I saw what might be considered suburbs. This was just right outside of Rome. And then you start to see these umbrella trees. We drove around, we drove over the Tiber River. Typical apartment building in Rome, shops on the bottom, apartments on top. And this is a Circus Maximus. The circus is 2,037 feet in length and 387 feet wide, and it's where they held the chariot races. And it could seat 150,000 people. Right now it's a public park. The inside, this is the public park. This is one of the original gates to Rome. It's still in use. There's another shot of Circus Maximus and a temple. You see temples all over the place. I took a picture of this building. Did you see that white marble? That is white travertine marble, which originally was on the Colosseum. What happened after the Colosseum, when they stopped using it after centuries, they started cannibalizing the white marble. And there's no original, well, there's only one place in the Colosseum that has original marble. It's all now the skeleton is what you see of the Colosseum. And there it is. And it was, it's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The construction began in 70 AD under Emperor Vespasian, and it was finished in 80 AD under Emperor Titus. The original, it originally sat 50,000 people, and then they added an upper level to increase it to 80,000 people. When it first opened, they had games 24/7 for months on end. They had hunts. They'd bring in lions and tigers and bears, oh my, everything. And they would kill them, they'd have a hunt, and then they would butcher the meat and give it to the people. The people going to see the games, it was free, open to the public. And can you imagine being an event planner or something like that? No way. The building was encased in travertine marble. None of that is here today. And each one of these arches held a statue. And you can see the size. Those are people down here. And they're currently doing restoration work underneath. And these were where they housed the slaves. This is where they housed the animals. They had a pulley system that they could bring them up. And one time, in one of the games, or maybe more, they flooded this area and had sea battles. in here. And I learned something too that I didn't know. You know, growing up, you watch all these movies about Rome and the gladiators fighting to the death. That was not the intent. Gladiators were there to showcase their skills. They were highly prized. Every now and then one died, but that was not the intent of the gladiators. This area right here was the only place in the whole facility with the original travertine marble. That's it, right there. Now, you'll see white travertine marble here, but that was added in the 40s because Hitler was coming to visit, and they wanted him to sit on white marble. So that, although that's white marble, it's not original. And when they started taking the marble off of all these buildings, they put them on churches. Probably a lot of the Vatican City has marble from Colosseum. The marble was held in place by iron and bronze spikes. You can see the holes here. There was no mortar here used in this building, no mortar. And this is the entrance of the gladiators. This is where they walked through to go into the arena. There's another shot. We had a basketball game with the Rome All-Stars. We won. This was held in a kind of a dome-shaped gymnasium. Again, no air conditioning. But we did have dinner prepared beforehand outside under tents by families of the Rome team. We had a walking tour one day, and this is Bernini's statue of an elephant. This is the Trevi Fountain, and you can throw money in there, but don't you dare try to get it back. And don't so much as stick your foot in there, or you'll be arrested and fined the equivalent at that time of $500 US. So it looked like a neat place to go swimming though, but this is the Spanish Stairs, and I took a picture of a street in Rome. It's just the salt. It's really kind of neat. We went to the Pantheon, which was built on the original site. This is the original one burned down, and then they rebuilt it. The original one was constructed during the time of the first Roman Emperor, Augustus. And it was used over time as a fortification, a government building, and it's now used at church. There are Catholic services that are held in it to this day. And Thomas Jefferson used this model for Monticello. One night, Coach Collop invited me to join her with the team, and we went to a restaurant, and that's my lasagna. And this was the basketball operations person who was turning her nose up at steak tartare by Andre, one of our Italian guys. And there's another pizza and gelato. Oh my gosh. And that's just a fraction of what you can get there. We spent a day at the Vatican Museum. You can spend a week at the Vatican Museum and not see it all. It's a huge building, and it's got corridors going off every different direction. The one thing that surprised me is that whole building is not air conditioned. And it was hot. And every time we walked past the window would be wide open, and one of those big fans was on. And you dare not lose track of your guide, or you get totally lost. And it was also visual overload to me, because this is actually the tomb of Constantine, who died in 337 AD. The floors were gorgeous. The ceiling was gorgeous. This was in the corridor of maps. These were all map tapestries. So no matter where you looked, you know, you couldn't take it all in. It was just incredible. This is a shrine, a wooden handmade shrine to Mary Magdalene. You could walk all the way around it. This just shows one of the corridors that went off in one direction. Roman bathtub. Now, this is the home of the Pope. This is where the Pope lives. And you'll see right here, and right behind this guy, is these Egyptian statues. They were liberated from Egypt. Yes, liberated.
They were
And of course, yes, the scars, which are very, very colorful.
Do you want them back?
I don't know. probably wouldn't have done it. We went in the Sistine Chapel, and I had to pirate these off the internet because you're not allowed to take pictures in the Sistine Chapel. And you're not allowed to talk in the Sistine Chapel. And what surprised me about this, it's very narrow. It's not even as wide as this room. It's very narrow. And this is Michelangelo's famous, what's it called? The Last Judgment. And it is right here. Right there. But when they go in, they warn you, there's guards at the gate, they say no talking, no pictures. Then we went to St. Peter's Basilica. This is the world's holiest Catholic church. It is built upon the tomb of St. Peter. It's the largest church building in the world, and it is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are more statues in there than you can shake a stick at. And I just took a couple. Of course, that is the high altar by Bernini. And then, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, by Michelangelo. The high altar was by Bernini, and the other one is by Michelangelo. This right here is the statue of Jesus surrounded by several saints. I don't know which saints. This is Saint Helena by Bernini, and that's some dude on a horse. He has like a laurel wreath around his head, so it might have been one of the emperors. I don't know. Then we went into St. Peter's Square, and that's the basilica right there. This is one of the largest squares in the world, and they can cram in 300,000 people in this square. It was constructed in the mid-1600s. Again, the designer was Bernini. It has 284 columns, 88 pilasters, and 140 statues of the saints. Now, I'm not Catholic, so I didn't even realize there were that many saints. Unless there are. The obelisk here was carried to Rome from Egypt in 1586. Yeah. And there's the obelisk, and right there is this fountain, which is absolutely huge. I took a picture here because I'm not sure if it's this window or this one, the one below it. But one of those windows is where the Pope stands to talk to the people. That night, our last night in Italy, we went to this dinner cafe, and there were two guys and a woman that sang different opera songs while we had a 5 or 6 course meal. And they asked for audience participation. And that, again, is the NBA president, Rick Rump. And he volunteered while they were singing the song from the Barber's. And this woman here, she went out in the audience and she sat on the lap of one of our male guys that came with the team and sang a love song. And he turned big red. But that is two of the people with Mariella Santucci. This was a group shot. These are all the people that went on the trip. And it was taken outside of St. Peter's Basilica. The next day, we went to the Leonardo da Vinci Airport, which, if it weren't for the 2 Italian guys, I would still be there trying to figure out how to get home. Because Italian was being blasted over the speakers, the signs were in Italian. You had to go over here at a kiosk to register your ticket, and then you went over here to do this. Then you went over here to do something with your luggage. And then you didn't know where to go. It was just a zoo. And the kiosk to check your tickets wasn't working. So the 2 Italian guys were running from one to the other trying to get us all registered. It was sensory overload. But we had a direct flight from Leonardo da Vinci Airport directly back to Detroit. And then the buses were there to take us back to campus. So that was our day, or our week, rocketing through Italy.